Available everywhere on iHeartRadio.
WHPC HD Garden City.
90.3 WHPC.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk, coming to you from Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHPC. My goodness, it's also streaming on nccradio.org. Many people call us, say, Rabbi, we're so far away. Just go on your website, go on your internet, put in nccradio.org and you'll see Press Live. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. Guess what? Guess what, my friends? If you miss us this morning, in the morning hours, you can see it and hear it again, repeated on Sunday evenings at the 11 p.m. So let's get right into it. Hi there, my name is, you got it, the guy with the beard, Rabbi Perl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This all depends on when you are listening or watching us. Oy Gewalt, I nearly forgot. You can actually see me live doing my exercises right here in the studio by going to the Facebook Live at WHPC, or my own page at facebook.com, Anshel Perl. And you have the opportunity to post and make a comment, whatever it may be. And to everybody out there in the world of radio, we welcome you. So let's, as I always say, hello on the radio, hello online, and hello to the world. Today I'm going to cover a number of subjects that are on my mind. Some of them are fantastic, and some of them will make your hair stand up. Because sometimes you have to hear, we all have to share what we call the MS. We have to sometimes speak the truth and not hide behind all kinds of political talk. Free at last. Free at last. Thank God. Almighty, we are free at last. Who said those words? As I say hello to Basia Welkenfeld. My goodness. Let me repeat it again. Free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Who said those words? No, it wasn't Moses. It was the American civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King. And that's this weekend. But it could have been Moses, or for that matter, any one of the millions of Jewish people who were liberated from the Egyptian bondage. Good morning, Karen Dumbeck. This is the week when we read about the great Exodus. Those famous words, let my people go, as Moses distributed Metamucil. Let my people go that they may serve me. This was the divine call transmitted to Moses, by Moses to Pharaoh. Now, if the purpose of leaving Egypt and Pharaoh's whip was to be able to serve God, so where is the freedom? Hello? Where is the freedom? We're still slaves. Only now we have become servants of the Almighty. Isn't that a good question? Jeffrey Hirsch, good morning. And Basia has a good sense of humor. And Sebastian Vital, unbelievable. Thank you, Shalom. So this is our question. Indeed, countless individuals continue to question the merits of religion in general. Who wants to submit to the rigors of religion when we can be free spirits? Religion, they argue, stifles the imagination, stunts our creative style, forever shouts instructions, and lays down the law. Right? Let's get right to it. Thou shalt do this, and thou shalt better not do that, or else do's and don'ts, rules and regulations are the hallmark of every belief system. But why conform to any system at all? Why not just be me? As I say good morning to Jay Mostel, Laura May, unbelievable. Laura May and Jonathan, they swept our synagogue, elevated our spirits yesterday. Thank you so much, Laura. So many Jewish people argue this with me similarly. Oy vey, mitzvahs cramp my style. I got to show up in shul Saturday morning. I could go to Roosevelt Field. I could do what I want. You got to come down to the synagogue, listen to the Rabbi Hakan away over there with his stupid jokes. Mitzvahs cramp my style. Keeping kosher, oy vey, this is a serious inconvenience. Shabbos really gets in the way of my weekend. And Passover, oy vey. All right, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this year, Passover a little bit later because it's a Jewish leap year. So we have another extra month. Passover has got to be the biggest headache of the year. Long ago, my friends, as I say hello to Zalman Stuart Wegg, thank you so much. Welcome. Long ago, the sages of the Talmud said it was actually the other way around. Stand by, dear friends. There is no one as free as he who is occupied with the study of Torah. How on earth could that be possible? Come on. Torah is filled with rules of laws and ethics and even expectations and exhortations that we should take the high road and behave beyond the call of duty. Come on. How could they say that Torah makes us free? Surely, it is inhibiting rather than liberating. So let me share an answer I once heard on the radio, no less, while driving in my car. It was during a BBC interview with a gentleman called Malcolm Muggeridge. He was the former editor of Punch. I wonder if anybody remembers that. This was a satirical British magazine. I know that Trish knows it inside out. Punch magazine was arguably England's most irrelevant publication. It mocked and ridiculed the royal family long before they did it to themselves. In his latter years, this Malcolm Muggeridge became religious, and the interviewer was questioning how the Sultan of satire, the Prince of Punch, could make such a radical transformation and become religious. How could he stifle such a magnificent free spirit as his? Listen to Muggeridge's answer. It was classic, which I still quote regularly. He said that he had a friend who was a famous yachtsman, not a yachtsman, an accomplished navigator of the high seas. A lesson he once gave him in sailing would provide the answer to the reporter's question. The yachtsman taught him that if you want to enjoy the freedom of the high seas, you must first become a slave to the compass. Hesta Maisa. A young novice might challenge the experienced professional's advice. But why should I follow that little gadget? Why can't I go where I please? It's my yacht. But every intelligent person understands that without the navigational fix provided by the compass, we will flounder and sail in circles. Only by following the lead of the compass will the wind catch our sails so we can experience the ecstasy and the exhilaration of the high seas. So I repeat, if you want to enjoy the freedom of high seas, you must first become a slave to the compass. Thank you, Laura. Ladies and gentlemen, you go to my Facebook page, you have a chance to put up posts, comments, and I have the opportunity to respond to them. My friends, ladies and gentlemen, the Torah is the compass of life. It provides our navigational fix so we know where to go and how to get there. Without that guidance and direction, we will be lost in the often stormy seas of confusion. Without a spiritual guidance, a system, we flounder. We flounder about, wandering aimlessly through life. That's why Jews like fish, the flounder. Just look at our kids when they're on vacation from school and are free from the disciplines of the educational system. Unless they have a program of some kind to keep them busy, like a summer camp, they become very frustrated in their freedom. Within the Torah lifestyle, there's still ample room for spontaneity and the freedom of expression. Not all rabbis are clones. To the untrained eye, every yeshiva boy or girl looks identical. A black hat, glasses, and a beard. Take a look on Facebook right now. You'll see what kind of guy I am, how I look. The truth is, is that each one of us is distinctively different. An individual with his or her very own tastes and attitudes, personality and preferences. They may look the same, but each of us are very unique. We can be committed to the compass and still be a free spirit. Indeed, there are none as free as they are who are occupied with Torah. Think about that, my friends, as we go into a very more serious subject as well. As I say good morning to Lavana Lichter, good morning, and a good week to everybody out there. According to a new ADL report, anti-Semitism in the United States has skyrocketed since October the 7th, the invasion by the Hamas of Israel. In the last 3 months, there were 3,283 anti-Semitic incidents, including 60 physical assaults, 553 incidents of vandalism, and more than 1,300 incidents of harassment. This is more than four times the number that occurred during the same period last year. In the aftermath of Claudine Gay's resignation from the Harvard presidency, Harvard's anonymous campus social media platform called SideChat has been filled with an unprecedented level of overt anti-Semitism. All posters on this SideChat who are they? Current undergraduates, graduate students, continuing education students, alumni, faculty, or even staff. So, this wave of anti-Semitism is deeply troubling, disconcerting, and profoundly worrying. And surely we must do all we can, and we appreciate local government, the police force, and national government, federal government, doing all they can to confront it, to combat it, to call it out, and to create consequences for those who practice it. And yet, while this is alarming, there's something I want to share with you that is even more destructive, devastating, and dangerous to the safety and the security of our future. Even with this meteoric rise and this rise of anti-Semitism, it pales in comparison to the crisis that we all face of assimilation. The damage we are doing to ourselves and our contributions to the disappearance of our people. You may not know this, but in the United States, intermarriage was rare until the middle of the 20th century, with rates never rising above 3%. In 1964, it rose to 7%, and today it's 70%. In contrast to other denominations, studies show that the observant community is on the rise and exhibit a high level of demographic stability. So while that conclusion is validating, it is absolutely no cause for celebration. The hemorrhaging of this situation is not the result of so many flocking to the observant community. Some have suggested, and let's embrace the patrilineal descent as a solution. Others argue it's time for rabbis to officiate at intermarriages. Aside from representing gross distortions of Jewish law and the will of Hashem, these suggestions, if we really want to be honest, don't actually address the core issues. They simply attempt to put a Band-Aid over a deeply infected wound that is gushing blood. Indeed, they are the equivalent of cooking the books or manipulating earnings so they appear to report profit instead of loss. Recognizing patrilineal descent or accepting intermarriage just gives the illusion of addressing the problem. It doesn't actually do anything to address the very real threat facing the future in our communities. If one thinks the observant community is unaffected by these suggested monumental shifts in policy, well, they are grossly mistaken. Individuals and families who will have grown up thinking they are Jewish will meet children from observant homes, and their Jewish status will come into question. Children who apply to attend day schools, or families that will seek membership in observant synagogues, may have questionable statuses. These potential shifts in policy and practice will not only fail to stem assimilation, but will further divide our people. This is not a hypothetical issue that may arise in the future. This is happening now, and I see these issues arise frequently and tragically. The intermarriage is not a particular, group's challenge. It is not a problem simply of the unaffiliated or the secular. Why? Because we are all one people, one nation. And sadly, we are watching our own family hemorrhage. Anti-Semitism and assimilation are not only both rising, dangerous threats. Our response to both must be the one and the same. I hope you're all sitting down, my friends. Do you know what the response should be? More Jewish pride, more Jewish practice, more Jewish passion. When talking about the mitzvah of tzitzis, our rabbis explain. In order to explain it to us, they give us the following metaphor. A person was once cast into the sea and was drowning. The Coast Guard threw the person a rope and said, "Grab on! If you hold on to it, you will survive. But if you let go, you will be swept away and disappear." Wearing tzitzis reminds us of our commitment and responsibility to a life of Torah and mitzvahs. Grabbing onto those ropes and what they stand for gives us life. Tzitzis themselves obviously are not the solution, but they are a symbol of a lifestyle of mitzvahs. Eitz chaim hi lemachzikim ba. The Torah is the tree of life for those who grab onto it. Let it go, and sadly the person will be swept away. The storms of change are raging around us. The current is getting stronger and stronger and sweeping more and more away. The only way to stay safe and remain true to our values, our traditions, and our obligations is to make a commitment to not only hold on to the Torah, but to demonstrate a willingness to swim upstream at times, to go against the tide, to dare to be different, and to be willing to stand out. This is no easy task, and it takes great courage. But we have it within ourselves, our very DNA, because of our great patriarch, Abraham. He planted something inside of us. Abraham was called Avram HaIvri, meaning Me'aver, on the other side. When the whole world took one position and stood on one side, he had the courage to stand out, remain true to the vision and the will of the Almighty, and to stand on the other side, even when it meant standing by himself. W.C. Fields once said, "Remember, a dead fish can float downstream, but it takes a live one to swim upstream." Those who are spiritually dead, cut off from our timeless and time-tested traditions, sadly are floating away. If we are willing to swim upstream, it's much harder. But we must be willing to grab onto those around us. If you are part of that upstream effort, be careful to grab on, to reach out to those and share our life preserver with everyone. Milton Friedman, who was a good friend of Stephen Epstein, Boker Tov, Ashrei, Milton Friedman, the great Nobel Prize winning economist and professor at University of Chicago, had a very simple suggestion for how to identify a person or institution's priorities. You see, many people eloquently describe their beliefs, their values, and principles, and talk about what is most important to them. Along comes Milton Friedman and advises to ignore what they say. If you want to truly know what someone's priorities are, it is simple. Look at someone's budget and you know what is important to him or her. See how someone prioritizes their money and you will know their priorities. Do we have dedicated people working on this cause? Do we put our money where our mouth is? This is our generation's test. It is our challenge. Will we rise to our generation's test and care enough, not only to be willing to swim upstream ourselves when necessary, to stand tall, proud, and to be passionately practicing and not putting others who are down, but also to extend our hand to those around us who are being swept away? If the answer is not a resounding yes, the consequences of the combination of anti-Semitism and assimilation will be devastating. With this, I return to a subject that constantly comes up in my work. As I say good morning to Richard Ruttenberg, Shavua Tov. Peter Hirschhorn, unbelievable. Peter Hirschhorn's back in town. I'd like to say a special recognition to Dr. Kilshevsky, who reminds us of something very special. In fact, I myself am guilty of this. You know, in our synagogue, across every chair, across all the benches, we have pictures of all those who were captive, who were taken away by the Hamas on October the 7th. And we have pictures of them all across. And I go into the synagogue several times a week. And sometimes I felt this week that I'm not even looking at these pictures anymore. It's just become part of the furniture. How wrong of me not to feel the pain, to feel the concern, to do the extra prayers, to do the extra mitzvahs, do whatever I can to help in some way to bring them home. So I want to thank Dr. Kolshevsky for reminding us that it happened 100 days ago. Thank you so much, Doctor. And we should take it seriously and put our extra prayers and send support in whichever way you can to help bring them home. The subject I want to share with you now is why Jewish burial is important for you and the soul of the departed. Throughout history, societies have adopted various approaches to dealing with corpses. Some have buried them in the ground, and some have cremated them. Others sealed them away in elaborate mausoleums with food and drink and mummified them, left them for the vultures, cannibalized them, and done unthinkable things to the bodies of their loved ones. Presumably, most people simply followed their neighbor's example in deciding what method to choose. Since the very beginning of the Jewish people thousands of years ago, although many options were available, Jews have always insisted on burial. Until recently. Today, mirroring the developments in Western society, we find out that a Jew is being cremated in North America every 16 minutes. So during my 16-minute program, some 3.75, I hope my maths is right, some 3.75 people have been cremated. What is the cause of cremation's increasing popularity? Was kommt davor, as we say hello to Joseph Kavanaugh? Here are some of the top reasons. First of all, environmental concerns. Burial seems to waste land and pollute the environment. Number two, mobility concerns. Kids don't live close anyway. Why feel guilty about not visiting the gravesite? A third reason, discomfort with decomposition. Cremation seems quicker and cleaner. Now I hear another reason, financial concerns. Cremation seems, and often is, cheaper than burial. As Professor Stephen Prothero put it, whether to bury or to burn is no trivial matter. It touches on the issues as important as perceptions of the self, attitudes towards the body, views of history, styles of ritual, and beliefs in God and the afterlife. Because this decision is so important, it is crucial not to leave it until the rushed and stressful times of the ultimate grief. That's why I encourage people, make sure you leave it in your will. Leave a letter as well. Make it clear to your children or your grandchildren that the time comes after 120 years to be buried. Do not rely on your children. Did you hear that? Do not rely on your children. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it in experience. As much as the parents may be a certain way, a certain observance, etc., certain standard, children will make decisions unless they're told about it in advance. You cannot trust the situation, the world, all kinds of things actually make decisions. Children can make the wrong decisions. So please have all these things clearly marked. Let's examine the facts. Environmentalists are not in favor of cremation. Hello? Why? Simply because, contrary to the common perception, cremation is bad for the environment. Cremation uses a tremendous amount of fossil fuels, over 1 million BTUs per hour, with an average cremation lasting 1.5 to 2 hours, sometimes more. A tremendous amount of energy at a time when finally society is realizing it needs to lower the use of fossil fuels. Environmentalists admire Jewish tradition, which prohibits metal caskets and embalming. Furthermore, cremation releases toxic chemicals into the air. The Swedish Environmental Protection Agency estimated in 2001 that cremations account for 32% of the mercury emissions to the atmosphere in that country. And a recent Canadian study found the problem so serious that it recommended simply that a cremation should not be situated close to a neighborhood. Finally, there's plenty of land available for burial. When you crunch the numbers, burials in the U.S. use far less land per year than the construction of new Walmarts, which is maybe 187,000 square feet per supercenter, excluding their massive parking lots. Even if all Americans were buried, God forbid, it would take over 10,000 years to use up just 1% of America's land mass. And of course, Jews constitute less than 2% of the dead, and a few cemeteries won't last that long anyway. So where does this misconception come from? Environmentalists are critical of embalming, the embalming chemicals, and the metal caskets. They recommend what are called green burials, without metal caskets or embalming, and openly admire the Jewish tradition which prohibits both. Environmentalists, I repeat myself, environmentalists are against cremation. Fertig. What about cremation does not solve mobility concerns as well? Modern mobility certainly makes cemetery visitations much harder. However, upon further reflection, things aren't so simple. First of all, it is hard to find an appropriate place for cremated remains. Feels strange to have them in the house. Even when the children do find an appropriate place for the remains of their deceased parents, How long will they keep them for? Until they sell a house and, the tag sale comes and the poor parents is, in the jar over there is gone forever. How long does it last? Until they switch jobs, until they move, until they retire. What will they do with them? And then, what happens in 10 or 20 years? They're no longer living independently. Will their children want the remains? Today, Mishkan Kop. Will they take them with them into the nursing homes? What will they do with the remains? Put them up on there in the entrance as you come into the nursing home? The point is that our homes and our families are simply not designated or designed for long-term storage of cremated remains. At some point, they're likely to be placed in an inappropriate place, forgotten or ignored. In all cases, the home option is only temporary anyway. Some choose scattering. However, in many families, a child or a grandchild will eventually develop a desire to visit the gravesite and reconnect to their loved ones who have passed on. Whether important to you or not, or to the deceased, scattering the remains prevents any descendants. I would say it's absolutely selfish to prevent any descendants from ever having a traditional gravesite to visit. Even in the cases where gravesite visitation will rarely or never occur, burial is the right choice. Let me give you an example, as witnessed by the case of Moses himself, where God buried him and hid the place of his burial. Why? To avoid it becoming a site of idol worship. We don't know where nobody's visited his gravesite, but still he was buried. Even when it doesn't seem like there will be any visitors, the body is at rest and has found a permanent home. What about the decomposition? It's never pretty. Now, if you are getting queasy about this subject, maybe you should turn down your volume on what I'm about to share with you as well. Many people believe cremation is quick and clean. It isn't. It ain't. To quote again Professor Stephen Prothero, think of the horrors of the crisping, the crackling, the roasting, the steaming, the shriveling, the blazing features, and the hands that yesterday were your soul's delight. Think of the exploding cadavers. Think of the stench of the burning flesh and hair. Think of the smoke. Think of the bubbling brains. Then you will be gripped by the paralyzing horror and even the thought of submitting the remains of dear departed relatives to this sizzling process. Cremation is, in a word, repulsive. Repulsive is spelled R-E-P-U-L-S-I-V-E. There's nothing beautiful in being shoved into an oven and scientifically barbecued by a patented furnace. In my family, my grandparents on my father's side went through that, not by choice, but by the Nazis. The Nazis. And they did certain things like this as well on October the 7th, the Hamas. True, being eaten by worms is not pleasant either. I'm not claiming burial is less gross. On a physical level, they are both pretty disgusting. Burial, however, is a natural process of decomposition that occurs to every human being. Cremation is loud, violent, and unnatural. What about the financial concerns? Cremations have the reputation of being cheap. It isn't always so. When all the side costs and the hidden costs are added in, I want to share with you what I read from Sherry Richardson Stahl, director of the Island Funeral Home in South Carolina, explains. Plenty of times, cremations are just as expensive as burials. There is one type of cremation, however, where costs can't be beat: direct cremation. In this type of cremation, a cremation company is contacted online or by telephone. They send someone to pick up the body, deliver it to the crematorium, and deliver to the bereaved family a small can full of cremated remains. Costs are often between $1,000 and $2,000. In an age of worldwide economic difficulty, direct cremations are becoming more common. That is unfortunate. I say good morning and welcome to Barbara Weinstein. May Hashem bless you with long life, your beautiful family. Baruch Hashem. We will never forget dear Fred of blessed memory. Here is why, though. For some things in life, it is certainly appropriate to find the cheapest solution possible. Times are tough, and we need to live within our means. However, for some life decisions, we manage to find the money to do the right thing. For example, I will do whatever is necessary to send my children to a decent school rather than going cheap and putting them in a bad environment. If a loved one needs a medical procedure, I will somehow arrange to make it possible. Choosing burial is important. Choosing burial is important, even in the cases where it is more expensive. And let me tell you why. What's the meaning of burial? When a body is buried, the ground is opened up. A tear in the earth appears. The gaping hole declares something is not right here. There is a tear in the human fabric of life. Take note, world. Don't rush through this moment. Recognize the loss. Remember the life. When a body is gently placed in the ground, a new message is given. The calm return to nature, the source of life. After decades of denying our mortality, Americans are starting to accept, if not embrace, this fundamental fact of biology, that the natural end of all life is decomposition and decay. Instead of fighting it at almost all costs, as we have for the better part of the last century, with toxic chemicals, bulletproof metal caskets, and the concrete bunker that is the burial vault, all of which will only delay, not halt, the inevitable, we'll finally seeing the wisdom of allowing Mother Nature to run her natural course. The earth, the dirt, is indeed the mother of all life. The earth provides us our sustenance, like a mother who gives birth and feeds her young. And to it all creations return, to begin the cycle once again. As was put together by a British dramatist, Francis Beaumont, he put it this way: upon my buried body lay lightly, gently earth. Returning the body of someone we cared for to the earth is a sign of love. Do we burn things we love? Think back to your first pet. We burnt the trash and buried the treasure. That is why, faced with life's first lessons in mortality, the dead kitten or bunny rabbit or dead bird fallen from its nest on high, most parents search out shoeboxes and shovels instead of kindling wood or barbecues. In the Talmud, it compares burial to planting. Burial and cremation usually reflect two radical different attitudes and two mutually exclusive ways of seeing the world and understanding our place in it. Decomposition and burning are vastly different from one another and in many ways complete opposites. Decomposition of a plant or living creature creates fertilizer. The intrinsic elements of the matter are not changed. Rather, they are given back to the ground. No wonder that the Talmud compares burial to a type of planting. Cremation, on the other hand, leaves only burnt ashes, its elements forever changed and almost entirely burnt off. Try burning a seed before planting it. Nothing will grow. In choosing cremation, humanity shows its power. But to what end? To what end? The message of cremation is to side with man as a conqueror, using fire and technology to interfere with and control nature rather than peacefully accept it. The message of burial is one of respect for the cycle of nature. When burying the remains of our loved ones, we calmly return what we have received. Burial reflects the rhythm of the universe. Furthermore, burial is a Torah commandment. The Deuteronomy, chapter 21, 23, speak to Dr. Kolshevsky, he'll tell you exactly, discusses the rare case of an evil criminal who is put to death. Even in that extreme case, the Torah commands us right there, you shall surely bury him, teaching a general principle for all cases. The obligation to bury is so strong that even the high priest, who zealously avoided all contact with all forms of death, must personally give the dead a proper burial if there's no one else to do it. The Talmud, the Maimonides, and the Code of Jewish Law all codify the commandment to bury the dead. Now let me share with you the spiritual ramifications as well. This severity, repetition, and focus on providing a Jewish burial in the Talmud, can be found in the Bible, in the Talmud, in the books of Jewish law, are remarkable and hint to important spiritual ramifications. Jewish mystical works do much more than that as well. They explain core concepts about the cremation and burial that change the way we think about death and life. In order to understand the issues more than our time today will allow, here is a point of departure. Who are funerals for anyway? Sounds like a silly question, but the answer forms the basis of many decisions made at this sensitive time. Some believe that decisions made after death, for example, whether to bury or to burn, and what type of service to conduct, are for the living, to give a sense of closure, to provide comfort. After all, the dead man is a shantoit. What does he care? Whatever we do doesn't matter to him anyway. He or she is already in a better place. We presume that the dead don't feel what is happening to their body, don't really care, and probably aren't even aware anyway. Mourning practices, then, are understood to be for the mourners. Hello everybody. The Jewish view is different. While providing comfort to the bereaved is central to Jewish tradition and is crucial to the mourning practices, it is not the only factor to be considered. The soul of the departed needs to be taken into consideration as well. That is why, if we can, next of kin, we try to talk them out of making that decision. Even if their parent told them, I want to be cremated, we advise, don't listen to them. We talk about within the law where the next of kin have the right to make the decision, because that person who's just passed away knows what's right for them. It helps their soul to reach into the highest places when their body is put in the right place. The soul of the departed needs to be taken into consideration as well. And some questions focus almost exclusively on the needs of the soul rather than the mourner's needs. What are the departed soul's needs? Ever thought about this? When death occurs, the soul still feels the close to the body. In Jewish thought, the body and the soul are not enemies. The body enables the soul to dwell in this world, to bring meaning into this daily life. Without a body, the soul cannot do gornished. The soul cannot fulfill its mission. Body and soul are partners, together for a lifetime. Since they are partners, the soul becomes attached to its body. When death occurs, the soul does not depart immediately. It still feels close to the body. Jewish mysticism compares body and soul to a loving husband and wife. When a husband departs this world, can a loving wife immediately move on? The bond is so close that time is needed to adjust to the new reality. The soul, then, does not abandon the body immediately after death. Since it is confused and disoriented, it stays close to what it knows best, its body. It hovers around the body until burial and shares in the mourning, going back and forth from the graveside to the Shiva house, back and forth, back and forth. The soul is fully aware of what's happening to its body. One way to understand this soul knowledge is to consider that upon its departure from the physical world, the soul achieves greater closeness and knowledge of God, who is the source of all knowledge, and therefore the soul shares in God's knowledge of what is happening to its body on earth. That is why traditional Jewish funeral practices are marked by tremendous respect for the body. I always advise families, just before we do the burial, to go over to the casket and ask for forgiveness to their loved one. Not that it says that they did anything wrong, but it helps the soul find its proper place. You go over to a box, you go over to a body, and you speak to them because there's a soul there. The soul wants to see respect given to its body. This body helped bring children to this world, worked hard, contributed to society, and you burn it like a piece of garbage. It's painful for the soul to see its body mishandled, abandoned, or defiled. Traditional Jewish burial gives the soul great comfort and provides the transition it requires to enter the purely spiritual world. Cremation, on the other hand, causes the soul tremendous and unnecessary agony. The soul cries out in pain as its partner, the body, is burnt rather than caringly returned to its source. The soul is prevented from gently returning to God, instead needing to go through a lengthy and difficult struggle to adjust to a new reality. Despite Judaism's great insistence on listening to the parents and honoring their wishes, we now understand why proper Jewish burial overrides a parental request for cremation. Once the body is dead, the soul gains greater closeness to God and therefore greater understanding. It knows what pain cremation will bring and what eternal meaning burial provides. Now, the real parent, their inner soul, wants to avoid the pain and separation of cremation more than anything that we can imagine. So we're doing a favor, we're doing a one last mitzvah for a loved one when we don't listen to their wishes and proceed with a proper burial. Finally, for thousands of years, Jewish people have insisted on proper Jewish burial. Roughly 2,000 years ago, a Roman historian wrote that Jews bury rather than burn their dead. Even today, the Israeli Defense Forces spends enormous amounts of time and energy and money and resources trying to ensure the proper Jewish burial for its fallen. Jewish people will fly around the world in order to recover ancient Torah scrolls and give it a proper burial. And people are more important than even a Torah scroll. By choosing burial, we are aligning ourselves with Jewish history, with the Jewish people. Really, in a sense, it's our last act on the planet. Choosing Jewish burial means declaring, I may not have lived up to everything that I was supposed to do, but I'm proud to be one, and therefore I want to die as a Jew. So again, one of the fundamental beliefs of Judaism, this is a question that was brought to my attention last week in Newsday that I had to make a comment. And I shared that one of the fundamental beliefs of Judaism is that life does not begin with birth, nor does it end with death. This is articulated in the verse where it says, and the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. There isn't anything after life, because Jewish tradition believes that life never ends. It just goes higher and higher. In the afterlife, the soul is liberated from the body and returns closer to her source than ever before. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, would often point out that a basic law of physics, known as the first law of thermodynamics, is that no energy is ever lost or destroyed. It only assumes another form. If such is the case with physical energy, how much more so a spiritual entity such as the soul, whose existence is not limited by time, space, or any other delineations of the physical state. Certainly, the spiritual energy that in the human being is the source of sight and hearing, emotions and intellect, will and consciousness does not cease to exist merely because the physical body has ceased to function. Rather, it passes from one form of existence to a higher, exclusively spiritual form of existence. So contrary to the popular imagination, Jewish concept of afterlife isn't a realm of clouds, harp-playing angels, or fiery pits with pitchfork-carrying devils. To grasp the Jewish perspective on afterlife, we must first comprehend the relationship, as I've been discussing, between the body and the soul. In Jewish thought, the body is formed from the earth, while the soul is a breath of life blown into the human being by God Himself. Death occurs when the body and the soul separate, and the body returns to the earth, becoming part of the natural cycle. According to Judaism, neither the body nor the soul defines an individual. You are not a body, you have a body. Similarly, you are not a soul, but you have a soul. Judaism posits that the true essence of an individual lies in the internal struggle between the body's temptations and the soul's ambitions. While alive, these conflicting voices vie for dominance, with the pervasive body often taking the lead. However, when a person passes away, when the body is inert, only the choices made during life remain. The person's identity, according to Judaism, is encapsulated in the choices that we make. My friends, there's so much to talk about as I say hello to Jonathan Kroll, to Jonathan Wolf, to Linda Zellickson, and all the wonderful comments that are being presented to us today. And of course, we could talk about this forever and ever and ever. But I think everybody has gotten the main point here today of how we should look at ourselves. And the more we appreciate who we are ourselves, the better we are in fulfilling the, you could say, the mission, the important mission that we should never lose the spirit. Imagine you've been working on the job for years and years. It's hard, manual labor, and you're not simply tired, but exhausted, demoralized, drained, and frustrated. And then, one fine day, some new fellow on the floor stands up and promises a whole new world of equality, rewards, and ultimate freedom. Do you believe him, or are you beyond hope? Do you dare hold out for a better tomorrow and risk being devastated and cast into despair yet again? Or do you simply accept your fate and give up dreaming? So it was with our ancestors in Egypt. They were slaving away for all those years when a new face appeared and began making promises. Moses shows up. Moshe brings a message from God. They're about to be redeemed. There's a promised land ahead. All is not lost. There's light at the end of the tunnel. What was our response? They did not listen to Moses. Shortness of breath and hard labor. Commentaries explain that shortness of breath shouldn't literally mean, just literally they were short of breath. In Hebrew, the word for breath is ruach, which can also mean spirit. In other words, they weren't able to heed Moses' call, not only from a physical breathlessness, but because they lacked the spirit. Mekaitzer ruach. Having suffered bondage for so long, they no longer had the faith or the hope to believe that freedom was still in the realm of the possible. It was simply beyond them. They had lost the spirit. In the history of Egypt, not a single slave had ever escaped. How could an entire nation suddenly take a walk? Moses was a dreamer. They must have thought, who is this? It's not just not realistic to hold out such high hopes only to have them dashed again. And so the people were utterly despondent and spiritless, and therefore they could not hear. They could not absorb. They could not take on Moses' message. It happens all too often. Would you agree? People become so set in their mediocrity that they give up the hope of ever achieving the breakthrough. Marriages get stuck in the rut of routine, and the tedious treadmill keeps rolling along until we lose even the desire to dream. And Israel's people, even brave leaders, are so despondent from years of war, attrition, and terror. Sometimes we clutch onto imaginary straws because basically, if we're honest with ourselves, they simply, seem lost resolve. I've often quoted a wise proverb heard in the name of the legendary Reb Mendel Futterfass. If you lose your money, you've lost nothing. Money can come and money can go. If you lose your health, you've lost half. You're not the person you were before. But if you lose your resolve, you've lost it all. Moses brought new hope to a depressed, dreamless nation. He gave them back the spirit that they had lost, and eventually, through the miracles of God, the promise was fulfilled, and the dream became reality. To be out of breath is normal. To be out of spirit is something we can never, ever lose. My friends, let's have that spirit. Bring it up, bring it strong, and make a difference. Never lose that spirit. There are many, many, many wonderful stories, and hope time will allow me to share a quick story of a man was once walking in the woods when he noticed that many trees had targets drawn on them, each with an arrow planted firmly in the center. Impressed by the marksmanship of whoever had shot these arrows, he was delighted to meet a fellow with a quiver of arrows over his shoulder. And he says, how did you manage to shoot so many perfect bullseyes? What's your secret? It's very simple. The marksman replied with a shrug. First I shoot the arrow, then I draw the target. In the same way, in our lives as well, if a person has a good knows where they're going, life, everything will fit in. Not to worry. If you have the right direction, you know where you're going, or everything just will eventually, you can draw the target. So a person must say the same as well, in life as well. First I decide the point I want to make, then I craft the story around it. And there are many, many stories that would reflect this. Time has grabbed me, but I just wanted to share with you and wish everybody a wonderful weekend and good health. Many, many good years of good health and success and prosperity. May Hashem bless us very speedily. All the hostages will come home reunited with their families, and peace shall reign in Israel and around the world. Shalom, everyone, and have a great day.
The views expressed on air are not necessarily those of WHPC, its management, or Nassau Community College. Responsible opposing viewpoints will be considered by emailing them to whpc@ncc.edu or by mail at WHPC 1 Education Drive, Garden City, New York 11530. Thanks for listening to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
This show on 90.3 WHPC is brought to you by Triborough Pharmacy. Hi, I'm Barry Newman, the pharmacist at Triborough Pharmacy, which is a full-service pharmacy offering a full line of prescription drugs and over-the-counter products, Notary Public, and the DMV Vision Exam. We accept most insurance plans. Located at 3720 Ditmars Boulevard in Astoria, Queens, just blocks from the Ditmars Boulevard train station. Open Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. More information is available at 718-777-7033. Ask for Barry or Joe at Triborough.
This show on 90.3 WHPC is brought to you by CarStar Celebrity Chase Collision, with 2 locations in Limerick and Oceanside, who remind you that New York State law says you always have the right to choose which shop will fix your car. CarStar Celebrity Chase Collision offers a full range of services, 24-hour towing between Montauk and Manhattan, shuttle service, and they can help you with a rental car arrangement if needed. All repairs include the CarStar Lifetime Nationwide Warranty, ensuring that the experts at Celebrity Chase Collision are always on your side.
Y sí, hablamos español.
More information is available at 516-593-0920 or online at celebritychasecollision.com.
Hi, this is Mike Pantano, and this show on 90.3 WHPC is brought to you by my very own Pantano's Gourmet, where we love to feed you. Pantano's Gourmet has 2 locations, including Hempstead Turnpike in Uniondale and on Broadway in Hewlett, serving breakfast all day, crazy lunch sandwiches, or we can cater your next event. Our menu offers made-to-order burgers, chopped salads, grilled paninis, acai bowls, and more. Why cook? Pantano's delivers. More information and the full menu are available online at pantanosgourmet.com.
Oh, Pantanos! Catch Nassau Lions men's and women's basketball action live on Thursday night at 6. Come on, let's go Lions!
The boys of Nassau Community College.
Nominated for 12 big Intercollegiate Broadcasting System awards, including Best Community College Radio Station in the nation.
Available everywhere on the Odyssey app.
WHPC HD Garden City.
90.3 WHPC.
I'm looking for a record for my daughter for her birthday. I just called to say I love you. Do you have it?
Yeah, great, we have it.